Hello, everyone. This is Dr.SHIVA Dure. We actually just got back from this big event with all of our volunteers. We had an amazing event. I actually left my laptop at home, so we're streaming using my iPhone. So hopefully this is of good quality and the sound is all right. Obviously, this is the first time we had a big audience with a new sound system. So I apologize for the sound issues. We'll get it better. Tomorrow, everyone listening, January 6th, right here, January 6th, as you can see, at 12 noon, which is tomorrow, January 6th at 12 noon, we're going to march on the real enemy, which is racist Big Pharma. What I talked about at today's event is that the reason we're in this situation today, and what I talk about the situation today is the forced jabination of all people, the subjugation of the working class, the attack on science, the attack on freedom, the attack on truth, is not the establishment. That's easy. But it is the not so obvious establishment. I'll repeat that again. As I talked about yesterday in today's event, it's hard for people, very good people, hardworking people, to understand when they wake up and they recognize that they're being screwed, that they immediately can easily see the establishment on any issue. It's harder for them to understand the not so obvious establishment. And this is what the critical thing is. I was just explaining it to a friend of mine, a friend of ours, right? Tim Lucas. And Tim finally got it. You know, when we explained to him, look, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a real scumbag. Donald Trump is a real scumbag. All of us supported, many of you supported these guys. And it is that awakening that needs to take place. And that's why our movement teaches people and gives people political training. Because without this, we'll waste 20, 30 years of our life following Trump, or we'll waste, many people have already wasted a lot of time following Robert Kennedy. Right, John?
Yeah.
Right. This guy is a guy, John, can you go bring that other flyer? It's over there. One of our Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors did a great flyer really exposing the insidiousness of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's RFK, right? Doesn't even have his own identity, right? He's got a, yeah, they always need a brand, you know, Junior, you know, the third, the fifth, yeah. And I want to share with everyone, this is something that Ken Fielding, one of our Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors. Ken is, by the way, a everyday working person. He's a hair cutter. He helps a lot of people, you know, look good. But this is Ken's flyer. And as many of you know, it is our movement which exposed Fauci first in 2020. And look, it's not about getting credit. The reality is, how did you say, Frank? You know, after an event occurs, the dog race, what'd you say?
Well, you could buy a lottery ticket today, and 2 days from now, I will predict the outcome, and then you can call me Nostradamus.
Yeah. So if you look at something like the space shuttle blowing up, Alan McDonald, who was a chief engineer at the contractor, NASA wanted him to sign off saying the space shuttle was okay. This was a Challenger disaster in January of 1986. Well, Alan McDonald, he's a real whistleblower. He said, no, I'm not going to do this because the O-rings are going to break and the space shuttle is going to blow up. Well, the space shuttle did blow up, and then people recognized him as a hero. But imagine being an engineer after the space shuttle blows up, then saying, oh, yeah, I should have told you so, right? Well, that's what these, you know, opportunists are there. Robert Malone, well, this guy said, oh, I'm a big vaccine guy. I knew all this. Well, why didn't you say anything in March of 2020? It is myself, this movement, which exposed Fauci nearly 2 years ago. Where was Robert Kennedy? Well, he was banging some women out there, right? That's what he does. He was having people over at his house most recently, telling people they needed to be vaccinated. This is just in December of this year, last year. And then he blamed his wife. Oh, my wife sent out the invitation. You know, she runs the house. Bullshit. Okay. But this flyer here, I want everyone to look at it. And you will see in this flyer, you can take a screenshot of it. This goes through the reality of one of the misleaders of the medical freedom movement. And we use very harsh words to describe these people because that's what must be used. Scumbag misleader who endorsed vaccine queen Hillary Clinton 3 times and wants policies for full vaccination of all Americans. By the way, those are his words. So what Ken did is he did a very cool meme poster, which summarizes RFK entity. And for each letter, we have the facts. R, Robbie refuses to attend rallies, protests, unless he's flown first class with his entourage. You know, like how Jeffrey Epstein flew him around on his private plane. F, flew on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express. Epstein was a child trafficker, pedophile, and abuser. Everyone knows this. In fact, there's a wonderful quote by Michael Ryder, former Palm Beach police chief, and he says, everyone who knew Epstein knew exactly what he was about. He was constantly surrounded by underage girls, despite having no daughters or nieces. So all of you women who claim you want to fight for women and you care about your kids, imagine if you have underage young girl kids, and you recognize that Epstein was a child trafficker, and Kennedy, and by the way, Trump traveled on his plane. So you have no excuse anymore after you hear this to still follow this guy, because you have a serious contradiction, and you cannot resolve that contradiction except by saying that you like to support child trafficking and pedophilia. Okay? K, okay? Kills authentic bottoms-up movements and mislead people back to the arms of the establishment. We saw that, right, John?
Yeah.
Right in New Jersey. We went down. We brought up a militant bottoms-up movement. Kennedy was upset that I was really getting everyone angry against the House and the Senate because he wanted to negotiate, quote unquote. This is what they do, backroom negotiations. Well, that didn't work, but we won in New Jersey because of that bottoms-up movement. And Kennedy says E for emphatically. He emphatically quotes that he's emphatically pro-vaccine. That's what he said. And he wants policies encouraging full vaccinations of all Americans, end quote. And if you want to go to rfkexposed.com, you can see all of this. Next is N, K-E-N-N, N, the first N for Kennedy. He is the not so obvious establishment. He exists to distract working people back into dead-end lawsuits and legislators. That's why in our flyer here, right here, as you can see it, what do we say here, John? Can you read what it says?
Enough of the misleader scumbags. Trump and RFK Jr. both fucked us.
Right. And I think 1 out of 29 people surveyed had a problem with the word fucked us, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think they should really have a problem with the fact that Jeffrey Epstein fucked a lot of other people, and Trump and Epstein, Kennedy were on their airplane, right? So if you have problems with that, let's go back to who actually did the actions versus our words, which express our righteous anger. So the other N for Kennedy is just 2 weeks ago, non-vaccinated friends were not allowed to attend the dinner party at his own home as recent as December 2021. They had to be vaccinated. So he basically has lockdowns in his own home, right? So how could a guy who has vaccine mandates for his own home fight for you and I for vaccine mandates? Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? So again, all of you people who still want to suck up to RFK, please do not follow our movement. Do not follow me. I don't want your followership, because if you're that thick-headed after seeing these facts. E, he endorsed Hillary Clinton, vaccine queen, not once,
3 times.
not twice. How many times? 3 times, as early as 2016 for president, knowing she was for vaccine mandates, knowing she felt everyone should be jabbed. And then more recently, right here in Massachusetts in 2020, he endorsed his nephew, Joe Kennedy, who's for massive vaccine mandates. And he brought in all of his Hollywood friends to raise money for Joey Boy.
Oh, but Dr. Shiva, he's a Democrat. He's a Kennedy. He had to endorse them.
Right. So a lot of people say, well, Bobby had to do this. Bobby had to do that. Bobby had to do this. So what we're trying to educate people on is you have to take your brain and your heart and your soul, and you have to recognize that if you are making excuses for these people, that there's something wrong in your thinking. And it's frankly, it's sort of an insanity, even after we share these facts. That's why our movement has been always 2 years ahead calling out these people. 2 years ahead, we called out Fauci. And by the way, we're not just attacking this scumbag Kennedy Jr. And by the way, he's delivered 0 wins for the medical freedom movement. Our movement has delivered already multiple wins. And why, for the last one, Kennedy, he and his family have years of bringing. Okay. Sorry about that. His own. Sorry, we're streaming from our thing, John. Can you just hit the? Yeah. All right. We're still going. So his own uncle is the one who signed the 1962 Kennedy Vaccination Act. His other uncle, Ted Kennedy, who, by the way, killed that woman and got away with it because that's what Kennedys can do, is the one who saved Big Pharma by ensuring that no one could sue them. Okay? They created a vaccine court. And then finally, and for the last, 20 odd years, this guy supported Hillary Clinton and he supported pro-vaccine mandate candidates. So there you go. The real RFK Jr., this guy takes all of our material and writes a book. We should probably think about suing him again, okay? For plagiarism against Fauci. Fauci's an easy hit job in 2021. That train left a long time ago. So John also spoke, and Ken and Frank spoke. Again, I'm a working engineer and working scientist. Kennedy and Trump have no skill sets, as far as I know, to do anything. Okay, one's a failed, what would you call it? A failed lawyer, a drug addict lawyer, and the other guy is, unfortunately, he didn't get his second or third. Basically,
he didn't get the lead role in the sequel of 2024.
Right, that's what happened. Okay, that's what's on. And when Trump gave me a lot of nice gifts, very sweet guy. But, it was sad because he seemed more like an actor who didn't get his lead role, as I shared with you. So, John, maybe you can share with people. Let's talk about the not so obvious establishment. By the way, to those of you joining in, January 6th, 12 noon in Kendall Square. We're not going to be, it's very stupid to protest and beg to the prostitutes of politicians and puppets. We need to go right into the heart of Big Pharma. That's right there in Kendall Square. Tomorrow afternoon at 12 noon, January 6th, Kendall Square. We're going to march right on Pfizer and Moderna, who are each making $65,000 per minute, $1,000 per second. John, why don't you tell us very briefly your journey to break away from the not so obvious establishment? Go ahead, John.
Right. So when I first got involved in organizing and into the activism world and everything as a constitutionalist, basically, I knew right away.
Like a libertarian, right? You supported Ron Paul and these guys.
Yeah.
By the way, Ron Paul is now sucking Kennedy's. This is the problem when people don't have political. Ron Paul, unfortunately, is not trained politically.
Yeah.
Nice guy, but has no political training. Go ahead, John.
Basically. So when I first got in as like a Ron Paul supporter in 2012, and then up to 2017, I was starting to help organize free speech rallies. Very, very young, very passionate, but no political theory. But I knew Dr.SHIVA right away was a real one when he came and stood with us, because he came and stood with us when when things got hot and a lot of other people backed off and they fled to the hills when the going got tough. But Dr.SHIVA stood by me, so I've stood by him ever since. But in my youthful naivete, I was still going around trying to help all of these other groups out there, hoping to try to quote unquote bring people together for unity and all that stuff. And despite the fact I knew that they didn't like Dr.SHIVA because I tell you, because I was in all their meetings, they knew as soon as he walked in, he would basically start leading the whole thing just by pure skill and like everything. So without even trying. So they didn't want. So they wanted to be their own influencer types of people. They wanted to network. They wanted to do all those things, and everything Dr.SHIVA has been talking about is absolutely true. These people do backroom deals. They create a quote unquote organizing chat room. They throw in the people in their clique that they like, and they just appoint themselves the quote unquote organizers of the movement.
Yeah, in fact, I remember we had one meeting when John first brought me in. We had everyone here. We said, okay, let's talk about who the speakers are going to be. Very open, inclusive discussion.
Yeah.
And nothing was said there. At the end, the two of the backroom dealer organizers, after a 3-hour meeting, they didn't want to even tell who the speakers were. And then they had a huge speakers list done already that they had already decided on in the back room. And that's how these people work. They do not want to have open discussions of how to build a movement. And when someone like myself, a real leader, comes along, and I say that with all humility, which wants to bring together people to get to the truth, they're actually very afraid because they do everything in backroom corridors. And that's what you experienced.
Yeah, so because I was in essentially both camps at the same time, because I could see the contradiction. I could see Dr.SHIVA on the ground working his butt off, building a bottoms-up movement that was actually getting results in many different places and many different situations. And meanwhile, I saw other people just holding rallies for the sake of holding more rallies and not actually building a movement. And so eventually I just got fed up with these people. So not only was it Dr.SHIVA's training, but also these people just pushed me away just through just not adapting doing or running their movement smartly. It was just like shallow. Again, they just wanted to be influencers, just rallies for the sake of rallies, no bigger plan.
No political understanding.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of you are wondering where are we wearing these hard hats. Just to let you know, we had a bunch of our warriors visiting here from across the country. Some of you may know that I actually build things. Frank builds things. John builds things. John's gone through apprenticeship as a carpenter. We have a data center here. We actually wear these hard hats when we're working in the back. So people said, hey, why don't you guys let people know who you really are? We build things. We're working people. I build software. We build companies. We build data centers. Frank builds all sorts of generator systems.
I'm an electrician, but I built homes and buildings. And
Frank built his own home. Okay.
Several of them.
If you come to our data center, I built the whole home the whole data center. So we said it's time people know that we actually build things. That's what this is a symbol of. Truth, freedom, and health. We are building a movement. And if you guys want to get these hard hats, people have asked for them. We'll probably put it up on our shop if you want it, but you got to want to build something. That's what these hard hats represent. They represent that you are dedicated to building something bottoms up. You are not a parasite, that you actually want to grow stuff. But Frank went through a similar different journey. And many of you, by the way, most of the people come to the movement for truth, freedom, and health are not political people. I was an activist. I never was in electoral politics. Frank, you never voted, right? Until Trump. And then you went through the Trump journey. Why don't you tell people that, Frank, your journey?
Well, I really got involved in politics when Trump came down the escalator, right, in June 2015. Saw him as the outside agent of change. I know better now. Basically, I had to go through almost a 12-step program, to realize that he wasn't the outside agent of change. He was the not so obvious establishment. Exactly how on the left, Bernie was the not so obvious establishment for his flock. So I see some things in common with your RFK flyer there. For example, Hillary. Trump never locked up Hillary. The Lolita Express, Trump flew on that. Okay, so we can make excuses. Oh, well, he just flew on the plane. It's like always these excuses. Trust the plan. The plan was for Trump to make a lot of money, basically off election fraud.
And he did.
And he made
$500 million.
Over $500 million. From what
and now about $2 billion from his, social media platform.
Yeah,
without any code.
He's a grifter, and I had to come to that slowly. And I'm like, really, what really drove the dagger in for me was how he raised all that money off election fraud, which is fine, but then he endorsed the guy here in Massachusetts that said there was no election fraud, and that Biden won fairly. Yeah. I'm like, what? This doesn't add up. Twice he did it. So that's it. I'm done. I just like, no, I can't waste any more time on this. So it's kind of hard to break away. I think you used a good analogy of say a partner that's beaten you, and you got
some flowers once in a while.
Stockholm syndrome. It's really Stockholm syndrome. You're like, oh well, he had to do that. He was playing 3-dimensional chess or whatever. No, he wasn't.
Look, Frank, Trump invited me to meet with him.
Yeah.
Me and Michelle went. Very nice guy.
His personality's great.
Very nice friend.
That has nothing to do with it.
That has nothing to do with it.
You can have the nicest people in the world that are going to be a snake.
Right.
It's just that you're not going to teach the snake not to bite. That's just
right. So those of you
was a snake before you took me in.
Exactly. He said it himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said about some of the the Aesop's fable about the scorpion and the frog, right? Everyone knows that.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know that one, right? There's a scorpion and a frog sitting on the side of a river, and the scorpion tells the frog, "Hey, frog, can you please give me a ride on your back across the river?" And the frog says, "Wait a minute, you're a scorpion. You're going to bite me." And the scorpion says, "No, I'm not going to do that. Look, I'm just a poor little scorpion. Just let me just hop on your back and just get me across the river. I got my family on the other side. I would never do anything like that." Anyway, the scorpion finally convinces the frog to give him a ride. Well, sure enough, the scorpion jumps on the frog's back, and the frog is swimming across, is right in the middle of the river, and guess what happens?
He gets stung.
And the frog is saying, as he's dying, "What did you do to me? I thought you weren't going to do this." And the scorpion says, "Look, I'm a scorpion, and scorpions sting people. That's what we do. The elites will sting you. The elites will say one thing and do another thing. And they will smile, and they'll invite you and give you a martini. They will toast a martini talking about how they're fighting for the anti-vaxxer movement, right? While they're telling their friends to be vaccinated before they come into their home. Okay? They will collect money for election fraud and keep it for themselves. This is what the elites do. And if you don't know this, even after all the data we're sharing and after everything we've led this movement right on target, then you frankly need to either go get some training. And by the way, for everyone, go to truthfreedomhealth.com, because without political training, without serious understanding, without a community of people to remind you of these things and learn how to be an activist, you are frankly lost. We've had some very dumb people come around our movement, steal our stuff, and then go on to suck Kennedy's you know what, okay? Number of women, actually, because they don't have any dignity for themselves. And men, because they heard all the Kennedy speeches, right? And you have to understand the Kennedys have a marketing machine, which every 6 months puts out a new documentary on them. Forget the fact they murdered people. Forget the fact they cheated in elections. Forget the fact that they lie, cheat, and steal everywhere they go. But they brainwash you. Okay, and I did the video on Mahatma Gandhi, right? How the establishment brainwashed about Mahatma Gandhi. So our movement is really about you, and it's really about you. And like we say right here, are you ready to fight for you? If you're ready to fight for you, our movement has created the infrastructure to do that. The technology infrastructure, the educational infrastructure, the community infrastructure. But it's really up to you now. We can no longer afford to follow people on the quote unquote right like Trump or the left like the Kennedys, because at the end of the day, they both fly on Lolita Express, don't they?
Yep.
At the end of the day, they were both on Lolita Express. It says it all. So what more, John? Anything else?
I think it's actually funny to note that you would think, especially since it came out that Trump in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, that Trump had actually flown on Epstein's plane more than just like the one time.
Six more times
Yeah.
than originally thought.
You would think that since supposedly the media just hates Trump and wants to destroy him, you'd think it'd be wall-to-wall coverage of that.
Well,
You'd think they would never let that go.
Yeah, or the fact that RFK Jr. flew on that. And so you have to really wonder why the Ghislaine Maxwell trial and the testimonies there weren't fully covered about Jeffrey Epstein. You have to really ask yourself, you know why? Because the establishment is one. They all flew on Epstein's airplane. They all took money from him. The president of Harvard took money from him, even though he knew he was convicted. So did the president of MIT. And MIT, from Central Square to Kendall Square, owns all the land in Cambridge. And from Central Square to Harvard Square, Harvard owns all the land. And you know what they do? They pay zero property taxes. And then they rent the land to Big Pharma at subsidized rates so they get equity in their companies. That's how it works, guys. They're one big incestuous family. That's what a common word I would say incest,
Yeah.
right? Trump, RFK, Epstein. Trump, RFK, Epstein. Think about it. And you ain't part of that group, okay? So you really have to ask yourself, you have to wonder, when Pfizer and Moderna are making $65,000 a minute, $1,000 a second, why the fuck are you doing anything with Trump and RFK when they all go to the same parties together, be it in Hollywood or in Wall Street? And so our movement is looking for people who really want to win truth, freedom, and health. And as the slogan says, to unite working people. Engineer, scientist, electrician, apprentice, videographer, multiple skill sets. Can someone tell me what skill set Robert F. Kennedy has? Can someone tell me what skill set Donald Trump has? Maybe he could be a B-rated actor, okay? RFK, probably could play a heroin addict, okay? But he's a shit-ass lawyer. Most lawyers are. So anyway, it's unfortunate that we have to be so abusive about these people, but we frankly despise these people, and so should you. But the way we're going to win is we're going to, first of all, identify the real enemy, which is the racist Big Pharma. And as I said, racist. Why are they racist, John?
One of the things that they do is like they think that only that their artificial molecules created in a lab can heal you. They never look for any inspiration from traditional medicines, which there's real compounds in nature that when you ingest them, they do things they interact with the human body. Like you always say, food is medicine.
I got green tea right here. Some of you may know we did a we just completed research using cytosol showing the epicatechins in green tea have amazing effects in modulating the immune system, particularly for transplant. A transplant, when people get a transplant, that they found some profound clinical observations that people who took green tea had much lower transplant rejection. With cytosol, we figured out why. Now, Big Pharma really doesn't want to do that. I've actually gone to Big Pharma. We actually got one deal from a company called Alnylam, which we helped. In fact, Pfizer, I went to them. I thought they would want to embrace us because we could save animal testing. We did some initial work for them on lupus, right? And then they disappeared. In fact, when I exposed Robert Kennedy, that filthy liar said I was a vaccine manufacturer. Okay? We were actually trying to help these guys save lives. He said I was working with Bill Gates. We have a lawsuit against RFK right now. So you guys got to really make a decision who you choose as a leader. Bottoms up working people like us, or do you want the bullshit glitz of scumbags who travel on a pedophile's plane, Trump or RFK? It's really up to you. Anything else, guys?
Well, tomorrow's the anniversary of January 6th. So that's
tomorrow's the anniversary of January 6th, which, by the way, we were very smart. We decided not to go to that event because we knew that it was going to be a shit show, and we knew Trump was going to betray people. In fact, you saw in the video, he told people to march to the Capitol. And what did he do, John? He went the other way. He said, I will follow me, right?
Yeah, no, he said,
Walk
I'll be
me.
there with you.
I'll be there with you. Okay? So we have to really, really be wise now. We can't afford in 2022 to follow the scumbags like Trump and RFK Jr. If you want to go hang out with them and play golf and whatever, shoot the shit with them, great. Be friends with them in that level. But if you think they're going to lead movements and be your friends, you're out of your mind. All right? So anyway, tomorrow, January 6th, 12 noon, Kendall Square. And by the way, it's Galaxy Park 220-230 at Main Street. You can see the flyer on our website, but everyone get out there. 12 noon, we march on Big Pharma. Cambridge, Massachusetts. January 6th, 12 noon, Kendall Square. Go look at that on the map. You'll see all the pharmaceutical companies within a 100-yard radius. Anyway, John, you can turn the stream. But thank you, John.
Oh, do you want to close
Frank.
out with that song?
It's okay. We have a great song we're going to release for you shortly. It'll come with this, okay? Keep an eye out for it. It's going to be a hit. Thank you, everyone. Be well. Have a good night. TruthFreedomHealth.com. I want to see all of you guys get training so you can learn how to fight and be a catalyst for real change. Thank you. Be the light. Anything else, Frank?
No. Good night.
Okay. Thank you.